he told us that as we go into the legislative offices and we speak to the staff and the senators and the assembly members about our desires for educational freedom, he said, just talk to them like normal people. They're just normal people. And so that actually spurred me on to run for office, because I thought, well, I'm a normal person. I can do it.
Welcome to the My SGV podcast. Our mission is to capture and share the stories of the people of the San Gabriel Valley. We believe our diversity is what makes the SGV great. And no matter where you're from in the San Gabriel Valley, you will feel welcome.
All right, SGVers, welcome back to another episode of the My SGV podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If you are new here, thanks for spending this time with us. We document and share the stories of the people of the San Gabriel Valley. And if you're a returning listener, thanks for coming back. We're excited to bring you another guest from right here. Scott, if people are listeners of the show, they'll know that you are no stranger to public service, right? You served the public in Seattle, and your family was also in public service, right?
I grew up in a family where my father was always involved in politics and public service. Politics to me doesn't have a nice sound to it, but public service does.
Yeah.
Sure.
And he was always involved in public service, always doing things in the community, for the community. He even ran for political office at various times, but he had friends. I just remember as an 8 or 9 year old, we would be out doorbelling for his friends who were running for office, people that we knew as well, family friends, and, delivering brochures and working in a campaign office, sending out licking envelopes, sending out campaign flyers and things. Always, it was just part of my life.
Wow.
Growing up. Yeah.
That's a foreign world to me. I was never exposed to or involved in that. One thing that really struck out to me was, if you remember Terry Tornick.
Yeah.
He's a Princeton graduate, and he said something along the lines of, like, it's his duty to serve the public after graduating, or something from that. Do you remember what he said?
I don't remember that, but I have the same feeling. I mean, I just feel there is a duty that people owe to a community to participate.
Right. Yeah. Politics were not even on my radar before growing up. And did you find it to be interesting? Was it just the life that you knew?
Yeah. Well, it was just the life I knew, but I thought it was very interesting. And in fact, I just kept up with it even after I was, a kid helping out my dad. I mean, I was involved all my life. Yeah, I always have found it interesting. At various times would run for office and hold office, or do other types of activities, assisting people who are running for office. I've kind of gotten out of it a bit. I'm kind of in a resting phase. But yeah, no, I found it very interesting. Politics, very interesting.
You said that you feel like the word politics has some sort of negative tone to it?
Yeah, it just sounds like, hijinks and, corruption to me. These are the words I associate with it.
And that's like the climate that maybe the U.S. is in, maybe the world is in currently, or maybe it's always been. I don't know, but I haven't had my pulse on it, I guess, for most of my life.
I think it's a word I try to steer away from. When I had a good friend whose name was John Chung running, he was our state, he was the California state treasurer. I always referred to him as a public servant. I had so much respect for him, more than most anybody I've ever met. And I always called him a public servant. I never called him a politician.
All right. Well, we're going to get to our guest today, but just as a reminder, San Gabriel Valley Now is your source for city news, announcements, events, special savings, and everything SGV. Check them out on Instagram, sgv.now, and read their SGV Now magazine on their website, sgvnow.com. Well, our guest today is a returning guest. She was on our show before, and she talked about growing up. She's, I think, 5th or 6th generation here, right? Chinese American. and homeschooled 6 children. And, she has a connection with our show in several ways, but she's also my friend. Her name is Elizabeth Wong Ahlers, and she's a candidate for Senate, right, in California. Elizabeth, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Russell.
Yeah, thank you.
Scott.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so, the first time we talked about what it was like growing up here and your experience in the San Gabriel Valley. And can you just remind listeners what your connection is to the San Gabriel Valley?
There's a lot of connections with people, community. Some of the cities are up to 66% Asian. And I've got that background, and it's, it feels like home. Well, it is home. I've got people that work here, live here.
Talk about your family that works for us.
Yeah, you can talk about the intro voice. That's, Is that the first time you heard that with the music and all that?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Well, I think I've heard it, but it was different the last time I was
Yeah.
on.
Oh, okay.
It was different. Yeah, it is your daughter who does our intro,
Right.
Priscilla,
Yes.
and your other daughter is our producer,
Yeah.
Victoria.
Yeah.
So you're part of the podcast family.
Definitely. So, Elizabeth, it's kind of tough for me to call you Elizabeth because I always say Beth. But Elizabeth, you have been here. Your family has been here in California for many generations, and you have raised, homeschooled 6 children, and then you decided to enter public service. And what was the catalyst for that?
Raising the children, raising the family is all service and very involved in community volunteer and church work. So we just graduated Johnny from high school. He turned 16 and we finished homeschool high school. So there's so many issues and needs in our state now that affect families, and this is the first time in California history that our population has been decreasing, and there's a lot of factors for that. And California is a great place to live, but I think that the people that are leaving are really a lot of families, and families with children, and families with businesses. So they're concerned about schools, they're concerned about affordability, and I want my own kids to stay with us in California. Both my parents and Ron's parents are still in the houses that we grew up in, and so we're not leaving, but we need to, like you were saying, public service. We need to do what we can to keep California a place where families can thrive.
Yeah, I guess I'm Gen X, right? So I'm 44, and the idea of buying a home here just seems, for most, I would say, very, very challenging. Very challenging. So you entered public service first in the city of La Crescenta, is that correct?
Right, yes. I ran for council there.
And what was that experience like?
Oh, it was fun. It was interesting because it was during 2021. So people were still staying in their homes a lot. But I went door knocking anyway, and people would open the door, smile, and they came out to vote for me. I won by historic margins because I want to serve. And I told them, we're going through a really hard time in our community and our state, our country right now, but we can be out there serving and doing good.
I always felt the best political situation is local politics, right? Where you're in your community, and there's more impact and more direct feel and influence as opposed to national or state level. So you were a city council person in La Crescenta.
Right.
And did you feel just really close to the community and close to your constituents? You were just right at that level, right?
Yes. It's really fun to knock on the doors, talk to what's your concern. And our very first open public meeting was a packed house, no standing room only, because the residents had a concern that was right in their backyard, and I went up there and I checked it out. I listened, and they were glad that I looked at it in person, and we had a unanimous vote on the council at that meeting, listening to what the residents were really concerned about.
I remember when I was a city councilman, and the first issue, and it was like a big hot issue, was should we allow a dental office to be built in our community, in our neighborhood? And, you know, this directly impacts people.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is what I liked about local politics, is that things that directly impact people, they can go right to you and tell you what they feel.
Right.
And you have to react to it.
Yeah, I'm just out in the front yard working in the
Right,
garden,
yeah.
and they drive by, stop the car, and say, hey, my water bill is like this. What's going on? What can we do?
Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you must feel proud to be in that position.
Well, I'm really glad that I can help them.
Yeah.
And if I can't help them, I voice their concerns to the whatever the entity is that has the power to help.
Both of you mentioned door knocking. I don't okay, I understand what that means, but is this just a normal way of getting out to speak to potential voters? Or like, who taught you? Like, you're like, okay, I want to serve the public. I want to run for this office. Like, how do you just go about and search that information on Google? Does somebody help you who's been there before? Like, how does that process start?
Well, to me, it was just natural, intuitive sense that if I want people to vote for me and they're my neighbors, they need to know me. And if I go to them, then I am making an effort of interest in them rather than just putting out an advertisement and say, come to me if you're interested. And, you know, usually you get a very small percent of people coming when you just throw out a general advertisement and sit there and wait. But if you go to them, they see that you're interested in them, and they'll share and they'll talk and they'll remember you and show up.
Yeah. You take a brochure
Mm-hmm.
and you give it to them. It tells about yourself. But yeah, you're right there. You can talk to them. Yeah, I think this has been a traditional part of, I'm going to use the term politicking and politics, even though I said there was a certain negativity that I attached to it, but it also describes the process, which is not negative. But I think it's a traditional part of political life. You go out, you knock on doors and talk to your constituents, or in this case, talk to the electorate. You're trying to get their vote. You want to get their vote.
How many engage in conversation, and how many just, like, don't want to speak with you? Because, like, the thought of knocking on doors is terrifying to me. Because I would imagine there's some rejection there, right? And like, it's like,
and also you
really
never
difficult.
know whether there's a dog in the yard.
So like, yeah, how many people want to speak, and how do you overcome that? Or maybe you don't have a fear of rejection.
Oh, well, rejection's always a bummer, but I enjoy people. I enjoy talking to people, and when they open the door and I smile, they feel a welcome towards me. And if they have an opinion, if they have a concern, or if they're suspicious, why are you knocking on my door? That's a conversation opener. So I'm actually surprised how many people actually say thank you for running, because they look at what's going on and they're frustrated. They feel powerless. And literally, I'm one in a million. There's 1 million people in this district. I'm the only one running. I'm the only one running in my party, and they want somebody to step up for them.
It's a Democratic district, so you're really up against the odds.
Yeah. If you looking at the data, looking at the past patterns.
Yeah.
But I love people, and I care about their welfare, their families, of the future of the next generation, and that resonates with everyone. Everybody cares about their children. schools, finances, gas prices, property values, safety, the smash and grab phenomenon that's going on with crime. It affects everybody. And there's reasons why we have this phenomenon going on now. It's a leadership problem.
So I'm interested in the thought process and how you go from, not serving the community to going, and how do you know that you're equipped, having never done it before, when you became a council person? Do you know what it's going to entail, the duties of serving your community, or are you just, I'm going to go in there and figure this out as I go?
Some of that. A lot of it is a pattern of success in everything I've done. And I'm a very good learner, a fast learner. I'm interested in everything. I ask questions, and we've been in the community all our lives, so I know what's going on. I keep up, and no one can be an expert in every area, but you listen. You listen and you learn. I do have a master's degree from UCLA, so I've
Yeah.
You can figure it out.
yeah.
Well, the traits you've mentioned are really the important traits. The interest in people, interest in community, and interest in making things better. To serve the community, you have to have an interest, a desire. You have to like people. You have to be able to learn and think and listen. Really, I don't think you need to, have prior experience. You just have to have a desire to help your community and work in it, and you'll learn the rest of it.
Sure.
And the idea of representative government is that you represent the people. You are a voice for the people. And so what it is that if you're willing to listen, you're willing to consider what the concerns are, and then you listen to experts on this issue, that issue, and you've got a wisdom in balancing all the factors and looking at every decision has some consequences, and just life experience teaches that kind of wisdom. And
you've met hundreds of politicians in your life, and many people have, but there's no nothing that sets them apart from anybody else, especially in an ideal situation. They are of the community, but they don't have to be a Rhodes Scholar or a genius or anything. They just need to, really have this desire.
When I was up in Sacramento at the Capitol with some of the children a few years ago, we were advocating for educational freedom, and I spoke to a chaplain that ministers to all the legislators in the building. If they've got issues, he has confidential time with them and prayer and encouragement. And so he told us that as we go into the legislative offices and we speak to the staff and the senators and the assembly members about our desires for educational freedom, he said, just talk to them like normal people. They're just normal people. And so that actually spurred me on to run for office, because I thought, well, I'm a normal person. I can do it. And I've got, now that my kids are graduated, I still have the time and the energy to put into bringing good and encouragement on a larger level.
Talk about the process that you go through to get elected. What kind of activities do you have to participate in? How much time does it take?
Well, right now it's pretty much full time. It's and day and night. You need to contact as many people as you can on the everyday local grassroots level, because they're the voters. But you also need to leverage relationships in a way that, because I can't really reach 1 million people individually. So you go meet people, ask for their endorsements, so that the people that they have relationship will build trust with me, even though I don't have individual relationship with all those people. So if a community leader endorses me, then the people that know that community leader will trust and vote for me. So it's all relationship building on lots of levels, and then there's the fundraiser part, because as a candidate, I can only put in so much of my own money into the campaign, and I need to have supporters contribute the finances for staff I need to hire, or print I need to have, advertising. And
Do you need a large staff working for you?
well, having a family of 8 is already very helpful. And so
As I learned when I was growing up.
right, yeah, and they're the ones that know me the best, and they already know how to work with me, and taking Priscilla along with me is a lot, and now Ben, I always say they're my best resume. And actually, I was at Chamber of Commerce in Arcadia last week, and someone was talking to my daughter Priscilla, and then he came up to me and he said, "Oh, they'll love her in government because she's very good at speaking and communicating." And then he said, "She's so great, and that really is a credit to you." And so I felt that, they trust me because of her. So and then but there's campaign manager, there's consultants, there's treasurer, and Priscilla's kind of doing the field director position right now. And then I'm doing everything.
Are you going to activities every day?
Just about. So it's good, and there's plenty to do. So last night I was at a very interesting book club, and I'm here today. And Chamber
But you
of Commerce,
like this type of life.
Yes, because it energizes me. Yeah, I love people. I love learning things. So when I go to Chamber of Commerce, I just so what's your business, and tell me what you do, and it's really fun to make connections, because like I said, I'm not an expert in everything, but I love learning, about everybody else's areas.
Do you find that anybody is just resistant to engaging with you because of their preconceived notions of what you may believe, and then that you're able to maybe bridge that gap with conversation? Or is that just, do you find that easy or challenging?
So far I have found that if there's anybody hostile or unpleasant, it's usually on social media, and they've never actually talked to me. When I'm in person with somebody, they're usually polite and kind, and if they look away and I can tell they don't want to talk, I move on. Like, nice to meet you.
Social media, it's people are really something else on social media, right? When you have an anonymity, you can say and do whatever you want. It's really bizarre. Well, all this is very foreign to me. The idea of having to do something every day and get out there, that seems like a lot of work. So someone is planning all the events for you or helping you with that, and you just go out there into the community and attend, basically?
Well, I'd really actually like to have an event planner and a scheduler, but I haven't needed to do that so far, because the doors just open up, and when I go to Chamber of Commerce one day and they say, we'd like to invite you to this group, and then this group, and so I really can't even plan ahead, because every day another door opens up and I just walk through it.
Are you received well by the Chinese community here? Like, are they surprised that you're 6th generation Chinese here in America?
That's been really fun. Yeah, I usually mention that. And it's just been a great welcome and so much fun. We had a meeting in Arcadia that was it was an international business meeting, mostly I think Taiwan Chinese, and it was the first in-person meeting they've had in years. And they had 600 people show up, so excited they had to have two sessions of lunch. And so I needed a translator because I'm not fluent in Chinese. But it was really fun just going table to table, shaking hands, meeting them.
Nice. Well, Elizabeth, we ask each guest to bring an item of significance with you. Last time you brought several. So you cheated last time. So I'm anticipating that you're going to cheat again. So what did you bring with you today?
Well, I did bring several. I'm not sure. I brought these gifts. This is one of my new favorite books.
Oh, thank you.
One for Russell and
thank
one
you.
for Scott.
Oh, wow.
These are written by a historian, Susie Federer, and it documents miracles in American history. So I've been reading through it a little bit every night before bed because it's so encouraging to me campaigning right now, going through elections, and to see what God has done in our nation's past. And a lot of this I haven't heard in school, but it's documented that when in these times of crisis in the Revolutionary War, in the Civil War, prayer was called on by the civil government leaders. And miracles happened there where the odds were that, like the American colonists, there's no way they could win the Revolutionary War against the British Empire. But there was the intervention of God, even saving George Washington's life when he had bullet holes in his jacket.
I had read about that.
Yeah.
Didn't he intentionally ride his horse into enemy fire?
Yeah, yeah. And there was a testimony of one of the Native Americans years after that incident in George Washington, where this Native American testified that he shot George Washington and he knows he hit the target, and this man was protected by God.
Wow. Well, thank you for this book. I see that you brought something else there.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Russell. Yeah, this is a map of the district I'm running in. It's California State Senate District 25. So it's a very interesting shape. It starts here in Glendale and La Crescenta. It's all of San Gabriel Valley down to Monterey Park, goes up through Arcadia, Monrovia.
What's the white port? I mean, I know it's the mountains, but why is it
yeah.
illustrated like that?
This is the way they drew the district. So there's questions on whether this was actually legal, because these populated areas in the color are not actually contiguous and connected. So this is gerrymandered out Duarte, Azusa, and Irwindale, and it skips over to Glendora. And then there's parts of Laverne, parts of Claremont, Rancho Cucamonga, all the way in San Bernardino
That's really
County.
Curious how they draw, districts.
I mean,
It's always a political process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is the area in white like that, illustrated like that?
Those
I know it's
aren't-
mountains, but it's just
yeah.
because there's no...
Probably they're not city. It's
Yeah.
not
Oh,
a
I
city.
see.
They're not city.
It looks like a horseshoe.
Yes, Yeah, so I drive the 210 freeway all the way across, visiting people in Upland.
But there's a spot that's not included.
So what were you saying? You said it's always what?
Well, it's a political process. So the party in power creates the districts.
Okay.
So you could have had a completely different map if a different party was in power.
Well, now they've got a redistricting commission that's not supposed to be, going one way or the other according to the party in power, but it still seems to...
There are still cynics,
Yeah.
let me put it that way, and I'm probably a cynic.
So
Yeah.
what does that do though for how do you create lines
because
in your favor?
all of that area was probably, there's a politician who already controls that area and doesn't want to give it up, something like that. So they wouldn't allow that area to be given to another district. They want to keep a politician in power. This is the cynic talking. So in other words, see the white area that's blocked out?
Yes. What is that? Like Azusa? Azusa, Irwindale,
Yeah.
Doherty.
So
Yeah,
there
those
may
three.
have been an existing politician who was already elected. They didn't want to give that up, or the political party didn't want to give that up. So they went into a back room and parceled out areas the way that it worked best for them.
And is the public aware of this type of like map or districting, or are they just, okay, this politician is running in my district, and like, or do you educate them about?
I do have to educate them when I talk to them. If they're interested, some people will just say, "Oh, I like you. I'm a Democrat, but I'll vote for you." And but other people, they don't understand, and they want to know even what's the difference between California State Senate and U.S. Senate. So we've got 2 U.S. senators from California that go to Washington, D.C., and there's 40 state senators that do legislation in Sacramento, California, and so there's 40 of these districts. And this one's District 25, and it includes all these cities, but it is politically cut around there.
So it encompasses a lot of the San Gabriel Valley, if not most.
Yeah, most of it. Mm-hmm.
I see.
Right.
Oh.
So it has Temple City, Alhambra, Rosemead, Arcadia, San Gabriel, San Marino, South Pasadena, Altadena, and then goes up to La Cañada.
You mentioned something about that she's up against it or something. I forget how you framed it.
Oh, because she's in a Democratic district. Most of the voters would be Democrats.
So does that mean that they're just likely to vote for whoever their political party alignment is?
Right.
I see. Yeah. So do you also get a chance to speak to Democrats as well in this process of going out? I'm sure you do.
Oh yeah, I go to real estate groups and Chinese clubs and Chamber of Commerce, and so anybody I talk to, they're interested. And for this primary election in March and the ballots mail out in February, it doesn't matter what party you're in to vote for me.
I see.
It's going to be the top 2 vote getters that will have their names on the ballot in November. So it could be any of the candidates, regardless of party.
Yeah, party is, you're right. It's not important, and it's the top 2 vote getters. That's a fairly new process. Right. So before it would be 1 from each party would be running, but now it's top 2 vote getters. So
Billy and his family, right? So I was speaking to Billy, and I forget what topic it was, and I just assumed that he was on a certain side because of his political affiliation, right? And I always remember what he said to me and how he said it, because he said it with this smile. He's like, Russ, he's like, our family is much more willing to consider the arguments from both sides, and and he just said it so beautifully, and I was like, wow. So my own thinking of him was very, I guess, swayed to thinking that he only looks at things from this one perspective, and he's unwilling to look at anything else, and that was really not the case, Yeah.
You like. I personally don't like the 2-party system. I don't like it because I don't think, for instance, I can easily vote for either party, for a candidate from either party. I don't feel bound to one particular party. Even though I grew up in a very strong Democratic family, I would vote across party lines anytime, and I have many times. I just don't like having to be
pigeonholed
into one particular group. I just don't like it. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
My real passionate concern right now is the transgendering of the children, and I think that crosses both parties of registered voters, that this is very dangerous for children, and it doesn't matter what party you're in. How can you encourage an elementary school child to have hormone therapy or surgery when their bodies and their brains are still in development, and they will not grow up to be a healthy adult with this kind of agenda that's being pushed on them? And so is
that the main issue that you feel that you're running on?
Well, I'm running on every issue that has to do with families and being able to afford to live in California. But that's one that I just cannot understand why anyone could be encouraging this. Children cannot make these decisions for themselves. When you're 12 years old, you cannot choose a course that will damage your body and your mentality permanently. You need to have parental input on that, and laws are being passed right now and on the governor's desk right now that will criminalize a parent for interfering with a school that is encouraging their child to do irreparable damage to their future physical and mental well-being.
And the thing about our political system or our form of government is that people need to be activated to think about, to resolve these issues that are being faced, right? And a lot of people don't seem to care about voting or public service or being involved in the community. And that must be a real source of frustration for you, right? How do you find people responding to the things you're saying?
The Armenian parents in the Glendale School District have been very vocal about the transgender exposure and agenda that's being pushed on their children in the school district. And those parents have had a very hard time being listened to, and they are frustrated and don't know what to do for their children. And so even though that's not a responsibility of me as a council member, they have been coming to me privately with concern. And so that has been a major issue for me to run for a state office, because these laws are coming down from the state. And even on the school district level, school districts are having a hard time dealing with it because it's coming down from the state.
I was going to say one thing that sometimes politicians are criticized for is, well, they'll take any stand, which way does the wind blow, right?
Right.
But sometimes people get involved because they have a particular passion or a particular viewpoint that they really want to get across. So, yeah, this is sort of, as a public servant, you're very interested in getting across your viewpoint on certain topics, and you wouldn't let the wind blow you one way or another.
No, because I would represent the constituents and give them a voice. And so some of these parents, this is part of representing them. But ultimately, I will stand before God with my conscience on what I did and what I said to protect the children. And this is the next generation. And what will be the future of California, of the United States, if the next generation has such a mental health issue and suicidal tendencies, and then physically, how will our healthcare system take care of them with their lifelong consequences of destroying the bodies that they were born with? So these are long-term issues, and for me, it's a spiritual issue, because I will stand before God with accountability on how I protected the children. So I can't blow with this one. There's other decisions that, okay, there's this or there's this, and you have to choose just the best of two evils, or the best over the good, but this one is not there's no luxury there for.
No. Elizabeth, it's clear that you really have a passion and a heart for protecting families. I want to get more into this conversation, but let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
At WarmuthLaw, they believe that just because you speak a foreign language, come from a different culture, or simply don't know how to navigate the legal system, that should not prevent you from compensation from injury or receiving benefits. Their multicultural staff have been helping SGVers like you for over 38 years. Visit law888.com or call them at 626-784-7017 and tell them you heard about them on this podcast.
All right, we're back with Elizabeth. Elizabeth, before the break, we were talking about some of your concerns for families in California and the future of California. And I'd like to return to that conversation. But before then, when we come back from the break, we like to ask these questions of our guest, and you can choose to answer them or not. They are from this set called Icebreakers. So here we go. If you could go back in time, what one thing would you tell your teenage self?
Well, I'm picturing myself at summer camp in the mountains, so beautiful. And I remember telling myself, "Don't be so self-conscious." So from this perspective to that one that felt so self-conscious, I would say, "Sweetheart, you're beautiful, and just shine. You've got the sunshine, the mountains. Enjoy the swimming. This is the best time in your life to enjoy the nature out here. Don't worry about it."
You know, it's funny. I think I would probably say the same thing to myself, and that's probably because teenage is a time when you're very self-conscious and lack confidence, which I did, and still do. So I think the teenage person should say to me today,
See, well,
you're beautiful, right? Don't just enjoy it, Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah, I would say the same.
Given what I've gone through, and at the time, I would tell my 13, 14-year-old self that I'm a lot stronger than I think, because I spent those years building myself up, thinking that I needed to be a certain level of strong to stand up for myself. And if I had heard those words or known that I was much stronger, because I needed someone to say that. And I waited until physically I was visibly bigger, but at that point I was much, much stronger than I needed to be. So anyway, thanks for answering that. To the listener, if you could go back in time, what one thing would you tell your teenage self? Drop us a line, email us, or put it in the comments below. Well, going back to the conversation about the future of California and our families, I'll just say this about myself. I have several tattoos, many of which I had before I turned 18, and I think I regret most of them. I look at my body and I'm like, I wish, one, that I could just see my natural body without them, and then also my children see it. And as much as I want to say it's a positive thing to them, I still have to tell them the truth, right? And so that's been a little bit challenging for me. Yeah. Anyway, with the well, my wife Laurel. We had this conversation today, and then we had this conversation about education last time that Elizabeth was on the show, and this idea that the school model now was based on the Prussian military, really, and then trying to create good workers, right, around schedules and identity, that you view yourself in this way, that a good student is one who listens, obeys, follows, does all these things,
Memorizes math tables.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So Laurel and I are more concerned with what does the school tell you that you are, right? Versus as a parent, what do we reflect to them who they really are? And I was like, oh my gosh, the school told me who I was, and I was someone who talked too much and needed to write a lot of standards and all these things. And so I sort of identified with that. And yeah, and it's strange that the school has a lot of power to say to a kid or help them, right, to either explore who they really are or to say you are this thing. It just seems like a really important thing that is happening in schools. So you're very passionate about families, and I know your faith is very passionate, a very strong thing in your life. And do you feel able to share that openly with people that you're out there speaking to? I know you don't shy away from your faith, but do people receive that still now as a strength?
Yeah, it's a positive thing because God is love. And when people talk to me, they feel God's love, because that's what I want to communicate to them. And God is real, and so if I just naturally present an aspect of God in my life, that people accept that's part of my life, that's who I am.
So many people I encounter, and just my own experience, it's mostly been Catholics, right, who maybe turned away from the church. And when you say God, they have this reaction of like a lot of shame and guilt, right? But like I the God that I know is not that, and I know the God that you know is not that. But how do you overcome that when like just the saying that you can see this reaction, you know?
Well, if there's pain there from some wound in the past having to do with religion, I don't push it, because whatever that wound is, it needs to be soothed over with love and not aggravated. And so I listen to people, and it's amazing how they open up to me and to start telling me their own stories.
Well, I think the important thing is she says, I listen to people, as opposed to I talk to them and tell them, right? I mean, you're listening, and that's really important.
Sure. And a skill that I'm trying to really develop also in my marriage. I think oftentimes I hear to fix, to solve, to act, right? And now I want to just hear to come alongside you, hear, acknowledge all those things, and not act. And sometimes just moving to do something, it doesn't feel good to the person who just wants to be heard and seen, right? So.
Right. Now, I just thought of a little story. Some of my volunteers that are doing the door knocking and talking to people, they actually went to a Buddhist temple, and they rang the bell, and the man came out, and they started they started talking about religion as well as the campaign. And so the man that came out of the temple, he said he's going to vote for me because he agrees with my Christian values, and he sees that just the practical outworking of governmental policy is affecting his temple. He had to put a fence out in front of the temple because people were coming into the temple and stealing things out of his temple. And so he doesn't want to vote for policymakers that will perpetuate this kind of behavior in the community.
Yeah. I think I mentioned to you, like, I wasn't sure if the things going on, the crime is actually increasing, or is it because everybody has a phone and you have access to it. For a while I was like thinking that, right? And now I'm like, oh, there's a lot going on. So much going on. I've spoken to a few people. Yeah, it's unreal. San Francisco in particular, I've heard many people going there, personal stories of going there, and it's like they described it as a movie scene.
Yeah, it's like another world. It's not.
I haven't been to San Francisco in the last 4 years. Have you?
No, I haven't.
Oh, yeah.
They said at all the popular tourist sites, there's glass from broken car windows that they just leave it because they assume that it's just going to happen again. And people are leaving their car doors open with notes saying, please don't break my car. And they're just like, it's otherworldly, it sounds like. Yeah.
And the chain stores like Walmart are leaving so that the residents that haven't left the city, they're not able to do their regular shopping because the businesses are leaving. It's a very unsafe situation for businesses, for children that are walking the streets. So, yeah, we don't want District 25 becoming like that.
Well, Elizabeth, we're going to have to move on with the final portion of this show. And you had shared with us before 3 things that you liked in the San Gabriel Valley. So we hope to hear three new ones.
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth, as Russell said, we talked before about 3 of your favorite or most meaningful places here in the San Gabriel Valley. Can you come up with 3 more?
Well, Russell took us to Presidente Oh, I love that place.
On Rosemead.
Yeah, it is beautiful. And sometimes I don't really enjoy Thai food, but I love everything that's there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a favorite.
Good.
Yeah. Always crowded.
Yes, and fun and happy. I love the atmosphere.
Yeah, it's a very nice restaurant. Okay, second place.
Up Rubio Canyon in Altadena, my son Johnny just finished his Eagle Scout project up there.
Oh.
It's a conservancy area, and he worked on the trail making along the creek in Rubio Canyon, and it's a beautiful place. So that's now one of my favorites here in the San Gabriel Valley.
Oh, nice. Yeah. And congratulations to Johnny.
Yes, he had a great time. So now you can take a beautiful hike up there.
Oh, so that's a very meaningful place to you.
Yeah. Oh, he made 6 creek crossings with the stones taken from the canyon in there. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so go enjoy.
Yeah, okay.
Did they allow him to put any placard or like, thing out there?
I think that they're still working on it.
Okay, awesome.
Nice. And how about a third place?
And the third place I just went to last week. It's the clubhouse at the Santa Anita racetrack. That clubhouse room is it's beautiful. And the whole building, it reminds me of Disneyland on Main Street. It's that era, except it's the real thing. It's not the copy.
Yeah. Well, we had the racetrack mentioned before more than once, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
The clubhouse. So how does that? Is that different from the racetrack itself? I don't know.
It's an indoor space where you could have events and banquets, and there's a beautiful staircase, a very high ceiling, chandeliers. The lighting's beautiful. So Chamber of Commerce met there last week, and it was they said that the sound was a little echoey for their event, but it was beautiful. I loved it.
Does it front on the racetrack so you can watch the action?
Not from the room I was in, but there are windows and lights.
So I didn't realize that there were facilities there that don't really tie in with the race itself or race activities. Okay.
Yeah, so you can hold events there. It's beautiful.
I think they even have food events like in the middle of the track. I don't know what it's called, but you can take like a tunnel and then there's this whole area in the middle.
Yeah.
It's on the grass, I think.
They call it the infield, I think. Yeah.
And then the 626 night market is now like in the parking lot, I think.
Yeah, my kids have gone and enjoyed that. And Tori were In-N-Out had their family picnic. Yeah, so In-N-Out Burger Company had their employee family picnic there with lots of activities and different foods. And so my kids have worked for In-N-Out and they love it.
Well, I've been to the 626 night market, and maybe I'm too old for that now, but it's a lot. One, it's too late for me, and then two, it's a lot of people. So I feel like I'm old now, but yeah. I think I probably would have enjoyed it if I was younger. Well, Elizabeth, thank you so much for coming back on the show and sharing your journey and your thoughts about the state of California and the district in particular. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
The website is elizabethforsenate24.com.
Awesome. Well, it's good to see you. Thank you again for coming in here, and appreciate you coming back on the show.
Oh, I enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Well, there you go. Thank you for tuning in for another episode. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And you can find our full back catalog of episodes on our website, mysgv.net. And until next week, we'll see you then.
Thank you for joining us on the MySGV podcast. Check out more of our content on our website, mysgv.net. This show was produced by Russell Mono and edited by Victoria Ahlers of Kind Monster Productions. If you'd like to join us next week as we capture and share more stories from our diverse community, feel welcome.
Nice mother.